We are now recording, and it is 7 o'clock on the dot. Ladies and gentlemen, I now call to order our December 19th, 2022 meeting. I ask you to join me for the invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, it's that time of year again. I know the year is just about past, and we're about to celebrate the arrival of your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. But Father, in addition to those more important things, we thank you for bringing us here together tonight again as a community. We just thank you for everything you've blessed us with. We thank you for the challenges because they are opportunities. And we thank you for the many blessings you bestowed upon Blackstone this past year, when there were many uncertainties a couple years ago about whether we'd grow, whether we would meet the demand of Fort Pickett. And Father, I ask that you bless this council tonight, the next council and mayor that take office, and they'll be sworn in shortly, with the spirit of goodwill and cooperation that you blessed us with for so many years here in Blackstone, Virginia. And we ask for these things in the name of your Son and our Savior, whose birth we'll celebrate this coming Sunday. Amen.
Amen.
We invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
Mr. Nash, where's your Christmas attire?
I'm a little disappointed. Ladies and gentlemen, you have before you the agenda. Of course, you all do, and I've got to make sure we're going on time here. We have first of all, we have a public hearing on agency funding. This is something that's been discussed at the last meeting. Mr. Town Manager, if you'd like to just preface the public hearing. It's about those who seek funds from the town.
Very, very quickly, as you guys know, as you sit on council, we get a lot of folks that come to us during the course of the year. And during the course of the year, there's different agencies, softball teams, there's all sorts of different groups. With this, it creates a more codified way for people to ask for town money. It's more compliant with the state code, which does require 501c3 status, and it creates an application process so that it'll be included in the budget. And I think that's pleasing to someone council. It does all those things, and I think it's going to take some of the pressure off council. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't tie the town council's hands. You still have the ability outside the budget to be able to do things, but it does kind of codify the process a little bit, so it's not as messy. But one of these terms I had to Jennifer, I said, we're good to do this, but I don't want council to sit up there and have to come back and tell somebody in need or needy person that we can't participate because of our policy. But it does have an outlet, council has the ability to consider for that.
And basically, ladies and gentlemen, for those in the audience, just asking that if you've got an event coming up in the next fiscal year, they're asking that the request be made on or before March 1st, 2023. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. And I think you'll still see the odd softball team or something come to you.
They'll always be unexpected, but we're trying to get those things that have become regular, recurring events into the budget process. So with that, I'll now open the public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against this? Yes, Madam
This
Clerk?
was more just like a public meeting, a public notice. It wasn't really a public hearing.
That is true. That's true. But if anybody would like to speak for or against, we're just trying to nail down and as many expecteds as we can. I don't see anybody eager to speak, so I will close the public comment. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
So moved.
Mr. Miller has moved. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Nash is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries 7-0. We have 4 scheduled visitors, but first and perhaps foremost, we have Ms. Kimberly Dom. Am I pronouncing that correct, by the way? Is it Dom?
Dom, yeah.
Okay, you are here to swear in the incoming council and the next mayor. Is that correct?
Yes.
I would ask, just because I've done this before, taking pictures, I think those are about to take office, that they could assemble down here in the well, and I'm gonna get a photograph, and the next mayor and I are gonna have a photograph later. But, Madam Deputy Clerk, you are free to arrange them at your leisure.
Yeah, Lonnie gets to hide behind you.
Pass that on.
I'll be around.
Pass it right on down the line.
I would recommend if we get the mayor, mayor in the middle and the council members, 3 on one side, 4 on the other, and get in close. Just trust me, thank you later.
Here, I can move the podium back if we need to. I'm sorry.
Closer. Madam Deputy Clerk, the floor is yours.
All right, so we'll do the mayor first by himself, and everyone else I'm going to do you as a group. So, sir, if you will raise your right hand. I, Lawrence Benjamin Green, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties incumbent upon me as mayor for the town of Blackstone, Virginia, for a term of office commencing on January 1st, 2023, according to the best of my ability.
It's my honor to say I do.
Beautiful. And sir, when we're done, I'll just need each of you to sign. Okay. Now, everyone else, if you'd please raise your right hands. I, Eric Nash, Loyette Wynn, Christopher Page, Wesley Gormis, Carolyn Williams, Jacob Allman, and Nathaniel Miller do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties incumbent upon me as a council member for the town of Blackstone for a term of office commencing on January 1st, 2023, according to the best of my ability. All right.
Could y'all all get together and just hold your hand up and face her? Again, generations to come will thank me. Wes, if you will take a step backward, you're fine. Just face her, hands up, everybody. Just trust me on this, y'all. Looking great on 3. Congratulations, everybody.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
That all rapidly fried.
Christopher Page.
Oh, y'all look happy over
I
there.
would be on, yeah, absolutely.
I didn't get the
In
memo.
other words, they're not gonna stay for the whole meeting? You're not gonna make them stay for the whole
Eric
meeting?
Nash.
Nope.
Mr. Allman, will you come down here and sign? Let's see, I'll take her. And I've got, there's Jake. I've got Nathaniel.
Whoa. The Skins, they cheated us last night. Cheated us.
Yep, that's it.
Back to the meeting.
Ms. Williams, can you sign that, please?
Yes.
All right, back to the meeting. Our second visitor is no visitor. We have Aaron Hawkins, who's our auditor, who will present a document that is very important for our town.
Thank you.
And congratulations to all those coming in and all those leaving. God bless us everyone, as Tiny Tim would say. All right, we have an audit report that many of you received electronically. And the floor is yours, Mr.
Yeah,
Hawkins.
thank you. So, and I apologize for the PDFs getting to you all so late in the process. Kind of a tough year for us with a new auditing standard that we had to try to implement, and had to do it for a lot of clients, and so it was kind of tough on us. But glad to be here tonight, presenting the report to you all. Big thank you to the staff here at the town for helping us during the audit process. Jennifer Hardy and Philip and Brittany, Treasurer's Office. Big thank you to everyone to get us through the field work that we needed to get through to do the audit. And as usual, what I do is kind of just flag some pages that I think are ones that I'd like to go over with you, and then if you have certain pages you want to go over with me, we can do that too and try to answer any questions. And I always start on page, the first page in the report, which you'll see is actually page 2. It's the independent auditor's report, and that has our name at the top, Robinson Farmer Cox Associates, and it's an unmodified opinion, which means that we feel that based on the testing that we've done, the financial statements that follow these pages are free of any material misstatement, and that they can be relied upon. One thing you'll see is there's a third paragraph there, a change in accounting principles, and this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier, is that there was a new accounting standard issued this year related to leases, and it really was quite a bit of work on Jennifer to kind of pull together all the lease agreements that the town has. A lot of them weren't necessarily something that we had to capture within the standard, but there were a handful that were. Things that in the past, you guys have had these lease agreements, and yeah, for things that you lease to someone else, you get the revenue annually. Things that you lease from someone else, you expense that annually, but now we kind of have to consider, okay, the term of this agreement, like if you're leasing something for 5 years, well, we need to try to capture the amount in this report that shows this is what you're actually going to end up having to pay over a period of time or receive over a period of this time because of that agreement. So that was quite a bit of work to gather all those documents and capture the amounts. Next page I have flagged is page 8. And this is where you can see your governmental funds. For you all, you have a general, capital projects, and special revenue funds. And the total fund balances for all those funds you'll see a positive $184,571. But the general fund and the capital projects do have slight deficits right now. General fund has a deficit of $245,000 and capital projects $161,000. Special revenue has a $591,000 fund balance. So in total, they're about $185,000. But I do point this out to put some attention on, the general and capital projects funds to, work on getting those fund balances up. On page 13, you can see the changes in your proprietary funds. I feel like that's something that's usually of interest to you all. That's where you'll see your electric and your water and sewer funds, the revenues, the expenses, and the changes in your net position. For electric, you began the year with a net position of $6 million. It increased to just over $6.4 million. Water and sewer began the year at 4.376, ended the year at 4.726. So similar increases in both of those funds.
Can I interject something right here? I want everybody to hear this. This is important. And the town manager and I will sometimes interpret things differently. But when you look at on that same page, in the middle of the page, operating income, it looks like the electrical department cleared $423,000. Water and sewer cleared $476,000. And we are still owed money. How much, Mr. Town Manager, from FEMA from the 2021 ice storm?
The last I checked, and what's in the budget, I'd have to check with Jennifer to see if any checks or individual small checks have shown up. But we had $283,000 in the budget to collect this year. And I think some has been received, but we're still in arrears, or FEMA's in arrears.
Does anyone from FEMA say, hey, here's the reason why it's slow, or it's coming by such and such?
2 years.
I wish I could tell
2
people
years.
owed money that.
We're 2 years. And,
Okay.
They paid some, but they haven't paid it all. Recently, they did pay a fire department. I think we actually provided some funds to the fire department when you guys had a claim, and I think that's been paid recently, but, in that budget, or in this audit, there were $283,000 yet to be paid in July.
So that would improve the electrical, if anyone who reads the audit, it's probably one of the most important documents the town gets. That would certainly improve the standing of the electrical department. Am I right? I mean, but improve
Well, I
the,
think some of it, I'd have to see what has been paid, because there were several different categories of purchase. Some of it was electrical, some of it
So
was
it's in general.
generators, some of it
Public
was,
Works.
Fire department, administration. I'd have to just see what was paid and what hadn't been paid, but the electric was the bulk of it.
It was. I'm sorry, go right ahead with your
No,
report. I
that's
just
okay.
want to get that on the record.
Okay. Next page I have is page 57, and that's where you see your general fund. And I stopped there just to point out that expenditures were higher than the budget this year. And I think a lot of that looks like it had to do with public works expenditures as well as some capital projects. And you can also see that change in your general fund balance there.
Mr. Hawkins, you've been auditing the town of Blackstone roughly how long? I want to say at least 5 years.
Yes.
How would you say the town's financial position has improved or declined during those 5 years?
I'd say across the board, and in terms of the total entity, I'd say it's pretty level, if not even maybe slightly up, because your utility funds are performing very well. General fund kind of like goes up and down. And I think I've stood up here a couple of years ago and said, yeah, you need to watch this general fund balance. And then the next year it kind of creeps back up. It's like, hey, you're doing better. And then it's kind of gone back down again. So it's kind of a little bit of a roller coaster when it comes to the general fund. But in terms of the town as a complete entity, I'd say it's pretty steady.
Very good. What else, any other items of interest that you'd care to point out?
Yes, just had two more pages flagged. I'll try to keep it quick.
That's
So
fine.
Schedule 1 is on page 67. Actually, Schedules 1 and 2, those are going to be where you can compare on a more detailed basis your revenues and your expenditures compared to the budget. And then
This is probably the most I'll talk all night about. I want everybody to hear this. If you calculate on the meals tax revenue, the meals tax total sales in Blackstone last year, the year that ended June 30th, before inflation really kicked in, $11.5 million in total meal prepared food sales. That's not just restaurants, that's, places that sell, there's 27 or so prepared food establishments. I checked back, that's a 25% increase over the previous year, and we're talking about the fiscal year that ended June 30th. So even, of course, inflation helps governments, unfortunately, or fortunately, but the meals tax hit a new record last year, and I would imagine this coming year would be even greater with the Fast C trainees now able to sleep in Blackstone. And then I did some math on the cigarette taxes, which were lower than budget. We got $87,318 off the cigarette tax. I did the math today because I was always curious. First time I've ever done it. Blackstone in the budget year sold 397,000 or so packs of cigarettes. Our tax is 22 cents per pack. I think state code allows towns to tax as high as 50 cents per pack. So I just want to throw that out there. And the lodging tax has also gone up. And again, this is the year that ended June 30th, so good things on the horizon. And it would be nice maybe not to spend all that money, to maybe have some of that money earmarked for things that might, bring more folks to Blackstone. I'm going to shut up unless you finish your report. I did some math today, and I was excited about it.
last page I'm going to talk to you about is page 90. And this kind of gives some information on the federal compliance work that we had to do. You all had actually several USDA loans that were, it's loan and grant actually, but that's federal dollars, and that's what we had to test as our federal compliance this year. Was on the USDA loans and grants that you received. We had no findings to report on the federal compliance work that we did. One thing I'll also note is that this is, I think, the third year in a row that you've had to have a single audit for having greater than $750,000 of federal assistance. And so now you have become a low-risk auditee. From an auditor standpoint, it just means rather than testing 40% of your federal revenues, we can drop it down to 20%. As for other things that impact, it's this entity a low-risk or high-risk entity. I guess maybe it could have some impact if you go to the bond market or debt market or something like that. It could make you look more favorable, but just wanted to point it out that you are now a low-risk entity for having had single audits 3 years in a row.
There's no discount associated with that being low risk, is it? Good laugh. Good laugh. Any members of council have any questions of auditor?
Philip, I've got a question of you. Just looking at the hotel and motel room taxes, we budgeted $31,000 this year. We're above that a little bit right now. What do you? It's going to be hard to predict. What do you see coming in the future?
Well, Brittany has been much more able to collect from Airbnbs. Now, that's not been a huge amount. That's in the hundreds and maybe single-digit thousand
Correct.
increases. But with what's going on with VMAC or the Inn at Blackstone, I can tell you, it'll be public information, but, for 2 weeks in October, and I don't think they've paid the November yet, they haven't paid the November yet, for 2 weeks in October, they paid over $5,000 lodging tax.
And that's for
So-
2 weeks.
For 2 weeks. Now, that is because the inn keeps a certain class
Right.
of students who pay a certain way. When I say class, it's the class of students that are going to FAST together. Certain classes are exempt because they're more than 30 days. Certain classes are exempt because the federal government is actually making the payments. But these are, for the most part, the class that's held at VMAC or being hosted at VMAC does pay those.
So you're looking at additional, we're budgeting 31 now. We're looking at 120,000 additional over the top of that.
We'll be conservative with our revenue.
Right.
But
Absolutely, yeah.
appreciably increase, yeah.
Okay.
For sure. Even with what we're just seeing. And there's really only 2 hotels by zoning, if everybody knew. Academy Square, which is the old Plaid Rest Home, is technically a hotel. And VMAC, or the Inn at Blackstone, is technically, the other facilities are technically apartments.
Patriot Square's apartments.
Apartments,
Dave
Monterey House,
Dave McCormick's thing on Second Street that hadn't opened yet.
Apartments. And, and he requested it be apartments, and the only difference that we have in our zoning between an apartment and a motel is apartment can't rent for less than 7 days, and a hotel can't. That's really the biggest difference. It quacks like a hotel, it walks like, it looks like the rooms are almost indistinguishable, but some are hotels and some are.
I had a question. I heard you say that me and you was talking today. Now, and I was telling you about the apartment complex that was supposed to have been Fast C, but I see they got a sign out there that says apartments for rent. Now, how would you categorize that?
That is an apartment building over there at Patriot Square. That is an apartment building.
Not Patriot Square, the other one.
Academy Square?
No, up the street there, right on Tavern Street.
Oh, this is Patriot Square.
Okay,
That's Patriot Square. Those are apartments.
but you got 2 of them down there now. You got Patriot Square, and then you got some apartments up the street.
You know what, townhouses, Dillard Street?
Dillard Street townhouses are clearly apartments.
Okay.
But the Patriot Square was built with the intention to serve Fast C. I think that's why they're here, is Fast C. My understanding, he had 27 rooms. I know he has 27 rooms in the first building, and he has 24 of them rented to a class. So he's hosting a class,
He's got a bus.
and I think he's got a.
Saw the bus yesterday.
I think he has 3 units that he, because it's an apartment, could rent. Now, they're 1-bedroom apartments. On whether there's a big demand for 1-bedroom apartments in Blackstone, I don't know. I'm not in the business, but my understanding there's 3 unoccupied or were unoccupied at the time when Fast C rented it.
And he has those booked every 2 months, so each class stays for 2 months. So they'll be exempt, obviously, from, but it's 24 students per class, so.
24 out of 27 units are filled with Fast C folks.
Now, I highly
But
doubt
because
they'll
it's an
rent any of
apartment,
those
he's got
out.
3 that he can rent out
Yeah.
for extended period of times. And again, with a hotel, you can rent for 1 night, 2 nights. He would be obligated to rent for 7 or more nights.
Any other questions of our auditor?
Is that
Yeah.
good?
Any other questions? We appreciate you coming here, appreciate your time, and wish you a Merry Christmas and safe travels.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Thanks.
Absolutely,
Christmas.
absolutely.
And Mayor, before we go to the next visitor, we didn't approve the minutes. Can we go back and do that?
We need to go back and approve the meeting minutes of November 21st. I'd entertain a motion. We
So
must-
moved. So moved.
Mr. Miller has moved to acknowledge the clerk's fine work. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Jones, a second. Any further discussion? No corrections? Got a correction.
Everybody read?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
If
The aye.
anybody really read them, there'd probably be
They're,
corrections.
no, they're excellent. Trust me, they're excellent. We have next our Mr. Ed Harris to talk about, I used to know what this stood for, TTHM. They are tetracycline, and what is it?
Halo methane.
Has the reservoir flipped over again?
No, this is we did a sample back in August, second full week, and our numbers for some reason were 50% higher than I've ever seen them since we've been collecting them. So we did a resample and sent off to have the average bring the number down, and the courier lost the samples. So we just kind of got stuck with what we had, and this letter is basically a byproduct of it.
So we were 50% above the state's recommended safe maximum.
No, sir. No,
I
sir.
want to make sure.
That number that we got in August, this number that you're looking at is a running average. That's from 4 quarters.
Okay.
The number we got in August is usually around like 100 to 110, like 150 and 190. So they were significantly up. And we have made some adjustments at the plant. We're feeding more carbon to help settle out some of the organics. But really we need to start putting in some tank aerators to the tune of about 30 grand a piece per tank. And
Per tank? I think I think the number that I've been quoted is appreciably higher, but yes, they are recommending some aeration inside the water tank.
yes,
Not at the reservoir, but at the plant
In the
itself.
tank.
in the tanks themselves.
The elevated tank,
Because we just aerated the reservoir again.
that's working.
And that's working
See the
unbelievable.
bubbles running right
Do you
across
see a
it.
difference?
Oh, at the plant, absolutely. It's night and day different. Our manganese numbers are in the
So our numbers will be a lot better just because of that.
manganese. That doesn't affect the
Gotcha.
trihalomethane and HAAs.
Manganese is what makes your laundry.
Brown, iron, and
Right.
rust.
Well, now the
So-
TTH, the what is the proper description of the term we're describing? Is it an algae? What is it?
It's just when organics combine with chlorine. We treat the water to disinfect it with chlorine. There's another option called chloramines, but then you start adding ammonia to the chlorine that you're putting in the water, which I would have. As the Office of Drinking Water has told me, we've been treating drinking water for well over 100 years with chlorine, and this is what they're finally coming up with. If you were to switch to chloramines, what's to say in 50 years what they'll say you have? You know, it's just, it's one of those things. So, and also when you go to chloramines, you're adding another expense of feeding another chemical on top of, because you still have to feed chlorine. So,
just for the people listening and people here in these chambers who are paying very close attention, and I know this will sound like a company line that we expect all governments to say, but the town of Blackstone's drinking water is
safe. Yes, it's completely safe. I drink a gallon of it a day. The standard they say now is if, it used to be you had to drink a swimming pool full of water. Now it's you have to drink 2 liters of water for 70 years and there's a 20% chance that you could get cancer. I mean, it's just one of those EPA type deals where, I mean, hell, in 90 years, I mean, you're gonna die from something anyway.
well. Could this? I noticed you and I discussed earlier in the summer. There was when you crossed Jonesboro Bridge and the route, maybe it's the Route 46 bridge. There was like I don't want to.
It was an algae.
bloom?
It was algae, and we treat it with algicide, and it goes away.
Okay.
Sometimes it comes, and sometimes, like this year, I think we treat it 3 times. Sometimes we'll treat twice. Sometimes it's 4 times. It just depends on how the algae's
Could that have had an impact on this? Do we know what caused this?
organics and chlorine.
Okay.
And that we increase the feed of our carbon, which will help reduce the organics. But carbon has, to say the least, gone up significantly in price. I know that price isn't a
So aeration,
when it comes-
aeration would be better long term, is what you're asking for tonight.
in the tanks. Yes, sir.
Thanks.
What is the number right now that you're testing out there with the TTHMs?
Well, the numbers we just get back for November are already back down into the 050s. As to where this one was a .190
The courier lost the samples.
Not the courier record.
Of course not. we just quote people wrong. That's all we do.
Good point.
So in other words, you're saying in the budget, we need to be looking at,
diffusers in the tanks to me, that's the answer. And there's different things, MacBooks, there's diffusers, there's aeration, there's different ways you can go with that. Some of them I think have 40% reduction, some of them have 60% reduction. So
They have recommended them to us. I think it's gonna be more than 30
It's-
per tank. I think it's gonna be right much
how many
more.
tanks do we have?
somewhat,
We're talking
3,
about our elevated
2,
tanks.
You own 5 tanks for an operation.
4 in operation, yep.
Said aeration,
Bubbles.
helps, yeah, I understand what aeration is.
Yes.
You're saying it helps with organics as carbon does?
No, sir.
Okay.
The aeration is, you'll aerate the finished product,
Right.
and that's supposed to take the THMs and HAAs.
Where you get your sample at?
No, sir. In the distribution system, where you're actually getting your water from, we would put an aerator in there, and the aerator is supposed to pull the water up, and through stripping it, by throwing it into the air, the THM and HAAs are supposed to be released.
I'd like to refer this request, which is to the Accountant Finance Committee, and expedite it, just so, because there's
I
nothing.
think the big thing was a lot of people got this and they were like, holy cow,
Right.
we're just now being told about samples that were back in the day.
And unfortunately, with the numbers that were as high as they were in August, we may have to send out another one in February.
Well,
That's
I
just,
think it would actually make people ease their mind a little bit.
And this is normally more of a problem when treating organics in the, I'm guessing, the warmer months.
yeah, oh, yes, sir, definitely.
His
Yep.
numbers will be down again in the first quarter. It'll be low again, but then it'll start.
But our sampling is.
That's why it's over a full quarter, yeah. And August is always higher. It's just never been as high. And we've been having some issues down at the lab as well, so I mean,
Who knows what's right or totally accurate?
But if we tested it and there was an issue out there, we, at our own lab, we would have immediately told people,
we're not,
stop drinking boil water effect or whatever it be.
it wouldn't have been any of that, but we're not set up to test that. You have to be a certified lab with multiple types of standards and
Samples of B&B or-
DCLS down in Richmond, the state lab.
Any other questions of our very dedicated water and sewer plant operator and director, Edward Harris? Like I said, there are no secrets here, folks. We want everybody to know that, you know, if you ever have a problem with your tap water at your house, I would think we could schedule a visit. I mean, I know
Oh,
you're busy,
absolutely.
but-
I call up here. A lot of them know my cell phone number. They'll give it to you,
Right.
and I'm happy to do whatever.
We announce a flushing schedule, but we have no secrets, and it's the most important thing we do. It's not very celebratory when water's clean, but when water's not clean or safe, it's a crisis. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank y'all.
And we have one more scheduled visitor. We have Miss Alex Davis on the Town of Blackstone website, which is townofblackstoneva.com.
Hello.
Welcome, Alex.
Good evening.
Hi. So Philip had me come here tonight to just talk about the updates I've been doing with the website. So when I got asked to do it, I noticed that the homepage was cluttered, especially on mobile view. If you wanted to do online bill pay, you had to scroll all the way down to the bottom. So if you've recently gone onto it, you can see that the homepage is decluttered. I've added a community spotlight. You'd be amazed. People wouldn't know exactly how much the town does. So I figured a community spotlight would be a good way for people in Blackstone to know exactly what the town does, because being a new employee with the town, I didn't know how much the town did. I'm adding other things as I'm going along. I'm making sure that the page is staying updated with all the new information, the bids, the employment. Are there any questions? I have been redesigning it. I'm doing page by page, and as I'm going along, I'm making sure the homepage where you view it on the computer and then to your mobile view are matching up, because I want both of them to mirror. I don't want it to be that when you look at it on the computer and then you go onto your mobile, it's completely different. It's
Different
scrambled.
animals.
You want it to mirror.
Right. And a question that may not be in your domain, I'm just curious. I often search the town code because people ask me, the town code online is how current? I want to say 2020, somewhere in there, but we're doing another update, aren't we, soon?
Yes, we will do, probably do
Okay.
one in 2023.
Okay. Very good, very good. I'm just curious, I've not had the pleasure of meeting you yet. Are you from here originally?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you've learned things about the town of Blackstone that you didn't know, even having been from around here.
Correct.
See, we all think we know what we do, but because we're all in our own little rut, myself included. But it's good to hear, and good to have a fresh set of eyes. And I'm sorry the town manager made you come here tonight. We'll make sure.
What brought all this up is what we really want to accomplish, and this came from a conversation driving back from a Department of Aviation meeting with Jake one day, is the ease. I don't pay my bills online. You know, my wife does some of that sort of thing, but I do think most people do. And what we want to do is make that website so accessible and so usable for young folks and people that do that sort of thing, that pay online. We want to make it much more acceptable. Plus, we don't need pictures of town councils 2 councils ago.
We don't.
You know, stuff like that. We got to get that
They,
cleaned up.
they belong on the wall large.
But what we want to do and Alex replaced Ashley, who replaced Allison If you remember, Allison Payne was with us, and Ashley has taken her position, the blonde woman, and then we've hired Alex to replace Ashley. And so one of the things we want to do is make that website and the utilities. If you figure how many times people contact the town, I'd say 80% of the contacts we get, phone calls or emails, probably are about our utility bill and my tax bill or something
It's
associated with the treasurer.
utility, or ditch.
So we want to make sure that that side has first dibs on working on the website, making it usable, making it accessible, making it easy to use, and we think that Alex is probably the logical choice to do that, and she's on that side. And I appreciate Jake for bringing it up and showing me online, and Chris Page has given me some ideas that we'll start working on that make some good sense on there for usability. But she did have some long-term goals on there about creating town apps. Beyond me, I don't understand those things altogether, but we want to make it easy for people to pay their bill. We want to make it easy for people to access their account. We want people not to call up here or not have to call up here and stop one of the ladies from doing something else to answer a call about what's my balance or that sort of thing. It's still going to happen some, but if we can reduce those numbers of calls, I think we'll have done a good job. And we have lots of confidence in Alex.
Any questions of Alex? Thank you and welcome to the team.
Thank you.
If we could, while Alex is here, under new business number 1,
Utility write-offs?
yes, Alex has done the list for you all last month. It wasn't completed, and so Alex has gone in and done that. And so if maybe you could approve, and if you have any questions, she's here to answer them while she's.
We have before us a list of write-offs, and I see a lot of deceased individuals. And just for the record, I think the total is almost $15,000. Normally, I stipulate that this does not mean we cease efforts to collect. But with so many deceased people, we're pretty much done trying, aren't we?
I mean, then you only got, what, 10 that are under $5.
Yeah. I want to pay and do my due diligence, all right. Not likely. So, members of council, you have before you the list of annual utility write-offs. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Nash is approved. Is there a second?
Second.
Just,
Ms. Scott is seconded. Question?
just out of curiosity, I mean, obviously there's a
sorry,
large
Mr.
amount.
Horrible.
I mean, 14,000 or so. The ones that have deceased, how long have they been passed? Or
These should be pretty current because a couple of years ago we really cleaned up the utilities and all the deceased. So these are within the last couple of years, I would say.
so, hence another reason why we shouldn't let bills run so far out.
If one could wave a wand, which every city and town wants to do, and bring back the money all at one snap that's been owed to the town, delinquent for the past, just let's just say the last 20 years, you could probably build all kinds of stuff. You probably pay for the armor, or at least a good down payment. All right, motion been made and duly seconded. It does exceed $10,000. Therefore, we need a roll call vote. I believe tonight is Ms. Scott.
Ms. Jones.
Ms. Jones. Ms. Jones starts.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Alex. This time, we welcome any other visitors who wish to address council. There are 2 opportunities. I see Justin Roger Burns, who I believe I appointed to the Virginia 250 committee last month.
That is correct.
Yes.
My name is Justin Roger Burns. I live at 131 North Main Street in Blackstone, Virginia. I've lived here in the community since October 22nd, 2022. I currently work at Mitchell's Restaurant and volunteer at the Friends of the Library Blackstone. I'm recently appointed to the committee as well. I'm in the process of moving my long-term disaster recovery nonprofit, Secure Solutions, to Nottoway. One of the biggest voids and gaps I see in this town is the lack of a proper infrastructure to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem. In today's globalized digital economy, it is necessary to have access to a digital media lab to bring concepts to market. This enables individuals to create, businesses to adapt and expand, and communities to compete. I hope that the whole community invests in this most basic asset. In addition, a recent rumor was spread about me supporting Section 8 housing. I would like to be very clear. I do not support Section 8 housing as a form of development. I will say that all funding opportunities have potential. If a project-based voucher was paired with a career track program, then I could see how the one could help an individual stabilize and the other create a career path program which included financial literacy. Two funding opportunities I do support in the development of affordable housing are HUD's Distressed Cities and Persistent Poverty Technical Assistance Program and USDA's Mutual Self-Help Housing Technical Assistance Grant. I hope moving forward that the Town of Blackstone Council develops a coalition of collaboration to take these fundamental community issues on. Thank you very much for your time, council members.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Burns?
Yeah,
We think-
why don't you approve of Section 8?
He didn't say he did not. He just said there was a rumor about him advocating Section 8.
Yes. So
He didn't say he opposed it.
I mean, if you'd like me to have that conversation, I can. I've lived in many places where Section 8 housing by itself, without some kind of program that took somebody through a career path, ended up reciprocating, and where you had the same families living in Section 8 housing much longer than was necessary because they weren't part of some type of program like a hospitality program or something else that gave that person a guide that would eventually be able to stabilize their own housing. Some of the other programs I did mention are more of somebody contributing sweat equity and that kind of stuff and building their own home.
Like Habitat, things like that.
Anything else?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other visitors? This is the first part of two parts where visitors can address the audience, address the council, the mayor. Hearing none, we'll move right on to the fire chief's report. I know they have training tonight. Is anyone from the fire department here? I see none, but I know they do have a training exercise tonight, and we want to thank them, and they had a wonderful banquet. We have payment of bills. The first batch totals $1,129,031.89. These are checks not yet approved. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Nash has moved. Is there a second? Mr. Morgan is second. Any questions?
Philip explained they're high due to South Main Street project.
I think I received a bill today from B&B Consultant, which should be the final and last bill.
$1 million is a lot.
That's a little high when they're usually about 2 to 400,000.
Excuse me. Did not hear you, but I thought you asked if that was the last invoice. We're at $1.129 million total. In fact, you have paid HG Reynolds 2 drawdowns, exceeding $400,000 of that amount. Zima bill, which is typically in here with $248,000. Colony Construction, this is for the portion of paving that was the downtown Main Street portion, $128,000. Christmas bonuses for the fire department, $32,000 is not typically in the bill list. And Howerton Inspection and Southside Outreach, they're not exceptionally high, but those are phase 2 administrative invoices that were going there for the East End projects. But you had a lot of drawdowns for construction.
Just didn't want people to be alarmed that we just randomly spend
Nah.
100 or 1.1
We
million
just had a lot of
dollars.
construction being paid up. And we paid, in that particular month, we paid 2 invoices to HG Reynolds. As you can see, that's the same contractor on South Main, $372,000 and $67,000. And that is, the $67,000 was the final inspection and the final amount, which was a 5% retainage of the total.
And I do see in that same set of bills, we have $12,000 to the fire department. That was from FEMA that we expended.
I believe that's that FEMA
About
that I just
fire
mentioned to you.
department.
I see a bill to Lunenburg County Combined, which I assume is court. Am I wrong? Lunenburg County Combined looks like a payroll deduction? I don't want
Probably
that.
child support or something, if I had to guess.
It's $124.
Yeah, I just never noticed that before.
That's in, it's either child support or.
Okay.
Treasurer Virginia 12519 is 2 child support.
Payroll deduction, okay, very good. I just noticed it. Any other discussion on the bills or questions? Because they exceed well over 10,000, we need a roll call vote starting with Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0, and then you have before you the next batch of bills. They total they're more modest, they total $414,619.70. And these are broken down by department. And I believe these are bills to be paid. Is it? You think I know by now. To be paid, yes. Members, Mr. Nash has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Jones, a second. Any discussion? They're broken down by category, and they are your bills, and you have a right to see them.
Your bus department, we have equipmentshare.com, AC rental. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Air conditioner broke down at the bus shop.
How long has this been down? I mean, I
Part of
see,
summer.
I see
We were waiting
12,
on
13.
Contracted, work on them, we couldn't get them fixed ultimately, so those are portable air conditioners. They were loud, they were rattly, they were not something permanent, they're back. I don't think the girls used them, but maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month.
One
We
day.
got
Yeah,
14
One day.
bills.
They were there for a while, but whether they used them, and DRPT has paid for the entire replacement of all of our air conditioners.
So it's
there.
been fixed now?
It is fixed. It wasn't fixed, it was replaced. We had that awful geothermal
Geothermal stuff.
system out there that is absolutely a menace to work on. And so DRPT, the bus system, they paid over $20,000 to, and I think I just signed up the invoice recently
To Boyd.
to Wood.
And I know this is all reimbursed, but it just seems odd that you've got 14 invoices for AC rental. Seems like it went on a little long.
Too long.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're trying to get that fixed. We're trying to get it fixed, And it wasn't fixed, and I think the employees finally protested enough in my office and said, man, how did 40 80s in there? And so we got the temporary ones, and everything's been replaced now. There is no geothermal down there. I think the only geothermal that the town retains, I think, is the fire department.
And I think that there was some in each office.
Oh, there were
And
multiple.
That's
air
why it's
conditioners.
separate, that's why it's separate bills,
Each-
it's like Mary's office, Christie's office, different
Right,
offices.
each office had a separate
But-
unit.
Is that question today? So you're telling me every time you spent $2,581.25, it was for heat pump and its installation to the bus shop?
$2,581?
Yes.
That's a portion of that heat pump, but I know it's more than that.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch
Yeah,
of them
there's a
on
few
here.
more.
There's a few more of them on here.
That bus shop opened in 2007-ish, if I'm not mistaken. You said geothermal is normally regarded as an efficient.
Dreadful.
Really?
It's dreadful. Never,
Okay.
That was a huge mistake. For them.
'Cause I've heard people just rave about it.
It's impossible to maintain.
Okay.
Getting the parts and the cost of maintaining is a problem. I don't know your answer, Mr. Millen, but I see what you're saying at 2581. But I think Jennifer's right. I just have to check. I don't know.
There's
Correct.
I'm sure there's more than one unit in that building. That's probably split into.
She probably split it up, but I just don't know.
And
Wait a
Ricky
minute,
Putnam,
you got-
he came out and worked on
You
some
got
stuff,
one,
and
you
then
got
Boyd
two,
tried to work
you
on
got
it.
three.
and it
Yeah,
still didn't
four.
fix it, so then after they were trying to replace all the parts, then Philip
Six,
decided to go ahead and replace the
seven.
whole
Heck with
thing.
it, we're just gonna
So it's
fix
bills
the
for,
whole thing.
Got 8 or 9 charges on here with
And
2,000.
I'll get you a full explanation of why that is. But I can tell you, we no longer have that geothermal system out there because it was just an atrocious headache. And I dare say we'll end up doing the same thing with the fire department.
I was gonna say, because the same, yeah.
It was a flawed idea.
Because the whole courthouse up there, when they were renovated in '99, geothermal
Thing
was.
to do at the time, but
Yeah.
it's impossibly difficult and impossibly expensive to work with.
So it's great when things are running fine, but if you got to fix it, look out.
Yeah, you
Okay.
know that.
Because the people at the courthouse used to brag about how comfortable things were in the summer and winter, and okay,
could
that's
get
good.
it.
We had some stifling fire meetings over the summer when it wasn't working right inside.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were able to replace it using DRPT money. They paid the full cost
Wow.
of the replacement. So the town didn't have a replacement cost, and much of this will be reimbursed,
That's good.
if not all of it, but it was a mess. It
All
was
right.
a mess.
We do have a motion and a second to approve the payment of bills to be paid. Any further discussion?
If I may point
Yes.
out, if there's first and second, if you look at it, almost half of this total bill list is the replacement meters that we're working on.
Yep.
If you look in there, core and main, right now the town is replacing not every water meter, but they're replacing the ERTs. And the ERTs is the electronic thing that comes up to the top of the meter. It's got like a plastic top. What we're transitioning to, and we hope to have at least one book done, and then a second book done, and 3 books. So maybe in the coming 6 months, 8 months, we may be able to finish. But this water meter system that we're putting in will allow remote reading. So we're not gonna have to physically go to every meter every month. And so it'll be read just like an electric meter on a laptop, driving through the neighborhood. Boop, and push a button,
Yeah.
and be able to read it. So we think it's gonna save us some money. There's gonna be growing pains, there's gonna be misreads. We know those things are going on. But almost half of this entire bill is the purchase of those ERTs.
Drive very slow on Oak Street near Mr. John Listman in September.
One,
how do you spell that word? What do you say?
ERT, ERT.
ERT is like abbreviation,
Philip,
electronic reading.
one thing that came to mind by looking at the meter deposit returns, have we been made whole of all the COVID money that we gave out to businesses? Are any of these ones that we've possibly given money back to in this?
In 2020, so everybody knows, maybe some of you
We had
may remember,
45,000 in that we dished out.
there were three $5,000 loans issued to three businesses that applied. There were four.
Three have paid in full.
It was
Three
20
have paid in
grand
full.
shelled out.
There is one that made one payment and then disregarded all of our notices, and they've been turned into collection
To tax.
to tax. And are reluctant and resistant to take those payments.
And they were 0% interest loans, if I'm not mistaken.
They were done a year after,
Yep.
they were provided. Trying to do a good thing, but,
Yep.
no good deed will go
Is
unpunished.
the business still in operation?
It is still in operation,
Do what you gotta do. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
but it's been turned in for collection.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see some angst on your expression. Do you anticipate turbulence?
From the collection of that?
Yes.
No,
Okay, I just didn't know you looked a
And I-
little
and
under
met with the
duress there.
individual business owner,
Okay.
provided them the contact information, so everybody knows, and our agreement with taxes are collection. We used to use one gentleman to do real estate collection.
James Elliott.
Taxes, Jim Elliott, but we've broadened that, and the council has agreed that we go with a company called Tax, TACS, and they do collections of everything, real estate taxes, business licenses. We've turned business licenses, we've turned meals tax, so much of that delinquent meals tax that you see in your report have been turned into tax. I don't know if you've given any real estate yet,
Not yet.
not yet. Jim Elliott's still finishing one or two.
I usually do that in February, so I don't have to work with.
But what I remind you is what we've had to tell folks, once sent to tax, we don't make deals. Their deals are with the attorney.
We try to help people. Once it goes beyond town hall, leaves Elm Street, you're on your own.
You're on your own, you gotta deal with the attorney directly because the attorney's fees are paid
Through the collection.
through the collections. Otherwise, if we make a deal and make somebody whole, we're gonna owe
Hurts
that
us.
attorney money.
Hurts
So
us.
we don't wanna
And
do that.
tax is last resort.
It's last resort
Last
and
resort. I would go through every other collection method possible before I turn it.
and it also protects those that Mr. Nash has said often. It protects those who are here paying their taxes from having to,
It's a
pay
much
more taxes.
Better process than turning it into Tessie and Tessie billing us by the hour in it. We turn it over and it's just another statement.
Again, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? We'll have a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Under committee, there's nothing under appropriations. We have the Employment and Police Committee, which had one recommendation on the employee loan policy, and I believe summarized, and Mr. Miller, you correct me if I'm wrong, loans will not exceed $2,500. You must be a full-time employee in good standing for at least 2 years, and the payback period is not to exceed 24 months. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And one loan every 5 years.
One loan every 5 years. And this was a unanimous recommendation of the committee. Some of you may or may not know, we've tried to help employees. We had a situation years ago where an employee, unbeknownst to the employee, almost lost their home. The delinquent tax sale was advertised, and for whatever reason they missed it. So we've tried to be good to our employees, and I've thought about it a lot and said, well, gosh, that doesn't seem very fair because the average person doesn't get such privilege. But in my conversation with myself, I realized our treasurer and staff do payment extensions and payment plans all the time, and you can make an argument that that is borrowing money from the people of Blackstone. So, in a time when good employees are hard to not only find but keep, I would entertain a motion to approve this policy.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Nash has moved. Mr. Morgan is second. Any discussion? I see Mr. Michael Bagley. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon and happy holidays.
Same to you, sir.
I think the town need to get out of loaning money to the employees. The town is not, to me, that's like loan shopping. We got banks in town, we need to go and establish an account with the bank, state $50,000 for employee loans. Give the employee up to a certain amount, say to 5 years, and then the payroll deducted, and then that will help the employee's credit rating also. We borrow from ourselves, it's not helping the credit union, it's not helping the credit report or the individual. If they borrow from the bank, go through a application process, and payroll, if they approve, and it's payroll deducted, then they will notify the credit bureau, and that'll help them also for future.
Sir, I appreciate everything you said, and in principle, like I said earlier, it's a philosophical dilemma for me. The only problem with your argument, in my opinion, is I don't think a lot of lending institutions would approve some of those for such low amounts that are in arrears. Some lenders will look at your municipal employee, and you've got a high credit card bill, or you've overspent. Those are just my thoughts. Members of council, what do y'all say?
I think a lot of this has not been a high credit card bill. Like you said, it's been issues where someone's child got injured and they needed to help pay for medical expenses. I don't think it's because they went out to eat too many times or spent too much on their credit card for Christmas.
Right.
I think these are more extenuating circumstances.
Most of them have not been consumer credit, the majority have been delinquent taxes.
Delinquent
utility bill.
If you get really down to this thing, we're really not dealing with credit cards and stuff like that. So when a person comes to you now, it's gonna have to be a hardship. Now, the problem is, I think last month we didn't actually decide what the hardship was. So we're gonna have to go back to the employee committee and define this hardship.
Each request now goes to council and the committee, it's not handled administratively.
And I did include on the new policy, a hardship is a debt that is incurred where failure to repay would cause the payor significant difficulty or expense.
And that's a legal definition provided by our attorney. Because Carolyn pointed out in the committee, I thought that was very wise. She said, what's a hardship for me might not be a hardship for you. That does put some definition in it. But Mr. Bagley, listen, I totally applaud you. The town's involved in a lot of things that many people could say we shouldn't be involved in. But I think by capping it at $2,500, I think the people are protected, and with the payback is through payroll deduction. So that any employee that gets into it knows what they know what they're getting into.
If you're guessing, we've had what?
3 or 4?
In the past.
One that went kind of high profile bad.
I think we've had 4.
You've had a request now for someone that had a high phone bill.
Recently.
Right. So
Recently, yeah.
they're not all benign, or I mean, like God bless it, you know.
One where it was consumer credit, but they had actually locked his checking account. And I guess they had garnished it or whatever the legal process is, but in order to unlock his checking account, payment had to be made. And so we got ourselves involved primarily because we told the credit folks that were doing the collections, if you'll waive the penalty and interest, we'll get this thing paid off for you. And they waived that $7,000 penalty and interest.
And that was before policy.
That was before policy. And then that same gentleman that claimed he had never signed any of the paperwork and he didn't.
Easy to forget. It's easy to forget.
You do owe it and we garnished his salary.
We have a motion and a second to approve the employee loan policy. Just to be safe, I'll have a roll call vote because, well, no, I will not have it because it will not exceed $10,000. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries 7-0. Under consent agenda, we have nothing. Under unfinished business, the school building agreement, which we've only talked about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
I very briefly spoke with the school superintendent today, and I think it's going to take a lot more talking. I think the school, at least the superintendent's position, is that they have an agreement with the town. I'm not sure that she's willing to modify that agreement or present a recommendation to the school board to modify it. I think as far as actually having them surplus the property to the county, I think she'd be willing to do that. And I don't know how to describe the conversation today, but it wasn't as cheery and easygoing as I had expected. I think it's a little more stern. I think the school superintendent has decided that what is done, and this is what we're going to do, and we'll do no more other than surplus it to the county. Now, I still need to talk to Mr. Constant. After the first year, I'll do so, and speak to him and see if they are interested in donating the property to the town, taking the property to the, from the county or from the school board. I think there's just a lot of moving parts, and with all things county, they're usually more complicated than they have to be. But
You got the building, you've got the landfill tipping fees. Meanwhile, we've had a debate about a Cox Road water line. Meanwhile, we're in negotiations with possibly a countywide water, whatever you want to call it, authority I think you said it best. There are a lot of moving parts. The superintendent's in a bind. She can only do what her board instructs her.
Correct. And she mentioned recommendation to the board, and she said, if you want me to, or that's what I'll do, I'll just recommend that. The problem is, will the county then dedicate it to the town if we tear it down? We'll start the negotiation process all over again the past 2 or 3 years. So, as is always the case, my goal is to tear the building down. We don't have the money in the budget right now to do it. There is an agreement, but I think the motion from the board, or from the council last time, was to speak with the superintendent and with the county administrator and see if there was